The next thing to refine is going to be the jacket trim. So I'm going to start hiding some of the stuff I don't need right now. Just leave the trim for the sleeves here. Everything else I'm just going to hide in my outliner. Um, and so since we want to focus on one part first, I'm going to end up deleting one side just to make it easier to make some of these adjustments as we start kind of laying out the geometry needed to create the ribbing detail on the sleeves here. So let's go into object mode, select our sleeves, go into edit mode. I'm going to go ahead and select, go into face mode, select one face here, click the up arrow key until I've selected the entire side, and then delete those. Then here, I'm going to delete these row faces here. I'm going to select this, delete this whole region, and then select this back row, this cap here. Okay, so now we have just this sliver of geometry. Next thing we want to do is subdivide it. So we're going to go into object mode, add a modifier, search for the multi-resolution, add a subdivision, then we're going to apply it. So if we go into edit mode, now we have more geometry to work with. I think I want to extend this back part so it goes more into the sleeve just to make sure um, we get the right connection point between the sleeve and the trim. So I'm going to switch over into my edge mode. Let's see if I can switch this over to normal. And then just move this over. Same thing with this. Just want to have it more in the center. There we go. Nothing weird happened. Now we want to add a little bit of thickness. So we're going to go into our face mode. Select the face, Control A to select all. Right click, extrude faces along normals. And so now we can give it the proper thickness to match the concept. There we go. That's looking good. So now we actually have to create the ribbing detail. So in order to do that, we have to select a row faces first. Go into inset faces. And then for our inset settings here, we want to change our thickness to 0.05 or just a number that kind of gives you a nice little space between our selected faces and then these edges over here. And then we want to add some depth. 0.03 worked well for me, and you can see it starts creating that kind of raised detail. So now we want to repeat the process for the rest of the rows here. So I'm going to select each row and just press G to repeat the function. And then you can start breezing through this, right? You can easily just apply it for the rest of the model here, which is pretty neat. Cool. So I'm going to unhide my jacket sleeve just to see how it's looking. Right now it's a little big, but I think once we subdivide it, it might fit a little bit better. It might shrink. If not, we can always just scale it down. So for now, we'll just keep it like this and see how it goes. So I'm gonna hide my jacket sleeve again. Okay, now we want to add some control edges to help us kind of support this new detail. And so I'm going to go into edge mode, select the the edges that create the little crevices or the spacing between the ribbing. There we go. And now we want to use the bevel tool. There we go. And I want to add 2 segments, and this should really help support the ribbing shapes that we have. Next thing we want to do is use our loop cut to add a little bit more edge loops uh, on the long side here to help it to support it and when we subdivide later on, helps it keep its shape a little bit better. And then next thing we want to do is mirror this over. So I'm gonna go back into object mode, modifier, search. You're gonna look for your mirror modifier. I'm gonna hit apply, and then I'm gonna add another modifier, uh, the multi-res here, and then we're gonna start subdividing this. And you can see we start getting some of that nice detail there. I'm gonna subdivide again, and then let's check it with our reference. It does seem a little bit big, so we're gonna go into face mode. Edit mode first, face mode. Make sure we have symmetry on. Select this side, and then we're just gonna scale it in a bit. There we go. And let's see how it looks in comparison to our actual sleeve. Not too bad. Let's bring up our hand here, just see how it's all fitting. That's pretty good. So now the next thing that we want to do is just kind of inflate this a little bit to kind of exaggerate the detail a little bit more. So we're gonna make sure we have our jacket trim sleeve selected. Go into sculpting mode here, and then we're gonna go into sculpt, inflate, and just inflate this a little bit, and you can see that ribbing detail accentuated a little bit more. And I'm going to subdivide again, and now we have a pretty good looking sleeve trim there. So now we just have to repeat the process for the other two. So it would be for the trim waist and then the trim collar. Cool. Let me raise the levels viewport here. There we go. So it would just be about repeating the same process for this. So I'm going to select the waist here. I'm going to delete some faces first. So I'm going to go into edit mode, face mode, select these faces, select these faces. Now for this, we're going to want to subdivide next. So I'm going to go into object mode, add a modifier, multi-res, subdivide. Then I'm going to hit apply. Now I want to check that the spacing of this ribbon is similar to this. I think right now this might be a little bit too wide, so we may have to add another resolution here. So I'm gonna multi-res, subdivide, and I'm gonna hit apply. That's a little bit closer. I think this is going to give us the spacing that we want. So now we're going to have to extrude this to get a little bit of thickness here. Yeah, so let's go into face mode. So edit mode, face mode, select all. Yeah, then we're going to right click, extrude faces along normals, match the thickness of the concept there. That's pretty good. Um, Next thing I just want to double check, if we go into our displays, overlays I mean, and you check on face orientation, we want to make sure that we're not seeing any of these red faces. That means that the normals are flipped inside out. So I want to select all these faces. So Control A. We're going to go into Mesh. And then we're going to go into Normals, Flip, and now we have the proper faces here. We can worry about the color once we're working on it. For now, let's just focus on this. So now we want to create the actual ribbon detail. So we're going to select the row of faces here. Go into our inset. I'm going to try the settings from before, see if they work. 0.05 and then 0.03. And that seems to work pretty good. So we're going to repeat the same thing here. Just work all the way around. I need to slow down a little bit. So 0.05, 0.03, and then now I can repeat. And G can work with anything. It can repeat whatever function you ended up doing already. So it doesn't just work with inset, just FYI. So if you do any kind of extrusions and you want to repeat the extrusion value somewhere else, then you can just press G and it should do the exact same thing you just did. Okay, almost done here. Cool. Now we want to add our support edges, so I'm going to go into edge mode, select all the creviced edges here. I know this can get a little tedious here, but it does allow us to create this detail very quickly. And it's a very repeatable process. So it's the type of workflows that I like. Something that's easy, repeatable, but gives you the result that you want. All right. So just double checking I selected all the edge loops I need. Okay. I'm going to go into bevel. I'm going to change my settings here. We're going to add one more segment. Increase my width here, 0.02. Something like that. 0.015. something like that. Nice. It should have plenty of edge loops horizontally here to hold its shape. So the next thing we want to do is just subdivide this. Go into object mode, add modifier, search, multi-res, subdivide. It did shrink a little bit, but I think we should be fine. Subdivide again. And then let's go into our sculpting mode here. And let's go into sculpt, inflate. And let's bump this up a little bit. Something like that. 0.02 seems to work. And let's add another subdivision. And let's go back to our object mode here. Let's see how it looks with our jacket. Cool. We can probably shrink it a little bit. So let's go here, select this. Yeah, we can shrink it a little bit and then move it up. So I'm gonna go into edit mode, go into face mode, select all, go into scale. Scale it in a bit, move it up. Let's see how that looks. Okay. Probably scale it in a little bit more. There we go. We can always refine the bottom of the jacket here as well. But I'm gonna go back to object mode. And there you go. We start getting some of that cool ribbing down here. And so the last thing is gonna be the collar. Let's switch over to our JacketTrim collar. Go into our edit mode. Select the face. Select all. Go into mesh. Normals flip. So now that's facing the right way. Next thing we want to do is going to be repeat the same process, right? We're going to delete the thickness here. So select this row of faces here. Faces. Select the outer faces. Delete those. It seems like we're going to need to subdivide this first. So go back into object mode. Add a modifier. Search. Multi-res. Subdivide. Nice. And then we're going to hit apply. Go into edit mode. Check the spacing there to see if it's, I think it's gonna be fine. I think it should be fine. We'll see. So now let's extrude this whole piece out. So select all the faces, right click, extrude faces along normals. You want to make it thicker here. Somewhere along there. Now I want to select all our faces, mesh, normals, flip. There we go. Now we actually have to create the ribbing detail again. So we're going to go row by row. Let's go here, inset 0.05, 0.03. Let's see how this looks. It may work, it may not work. Uh, Not the best result. We can always just adjust this after. But let's start going here. It's gonna start looking a little wonky here. Uh, Not the best, but we can make some adjustments here. So first thing, we want to make sure we're working with symmetry. Gonna go into our move tool, edge mode, and clean this up a little bit. There we go. I'm gonna make sure I have it in normal to give me a little bit more control there. Just trying to clean this up a little bit. Go into vertex mode and adjust this just a little bit. Just so the flow is not too bad. This does need to come out more. This one's a little too extreme. Just want to double check your model on all angles to make sure nothing's looking too wonky. That's not too bad. I think that should be okay. Just gonna double check around my model, making sure it's all looking okay. All right. Now I'm gonna select the middle edge loops here in between each ridge. Actually, I think I want to adjust this just a little bit more. There we go. Go back into vertex mode. Yeah. Just massage this a little bit more. Uh, I'm gonna check both sides look okay. Yep. Now go back into edge mode. Select the middle edges here. Alright, it's the same process as the other two pretty much. This just needed a little bit of tweaking due to the ends of the collar there. But it wasn't too bad. Now here we're gonna bevel. Okay, 0.02. Add another segment. I think we should be ready to subdivide here. So I'm gonna go into object mode. I'm gonna add a modifier, multi-res, subdivide, subdivide again. Let's go into our sculpting mode. And here we're going to go into sculpt, inflate, and then we're going to do 0.02. Okay. And then we can use our grab brush here. I think I'm going to do elastic grab and just push some of this stuff down. Same thing in the back here. Making sure it's fitting nicely with the jacket here. There we go. Maybe add one more subdivision. Nice. See how it looks with our head. Seems to be working okay. Can always bring it closer here. Just this a little bit. Okay. And yeah, there's our jacket trim. We're able to get that detail with not too much effort, and we were able to repeat the process across all the different objects there. Cool.